Hey guys, I'm Iffy, one of your co-hosts. Thank you so much for tuning into the Get Paid to Live podcast, where we explore how to intentionally design a life where you live first and get paid second. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you work for someone else, or you're just curious about how to create your dream life. In these episodes, you'll find the inspiration, the tips, and the motivation on how you can navigate that process through our honest reflections as new entrepreneurs. We have such a juicy episode today, and I can't wait to dive in. But before we do, we want to take a few minutes to tell you about a new end-to-end recording and podcasting platform that can help you find your dream audience and customers called Riverside. It has such a beginner-friendly interface, and it's super intuitive even from the first time that you go in. This way you can spend less time tinkering with fancy editing softwares and spend more time clarifying your message, what actually matters. It's powered by AI to cut out speech breaks, create clips automatically, and transcribe your videos. So no more manual captions. These are just a few of the many features. Personally, some of my favorites are the high quality recording features, the magic clips, the captioning, and the teleprompter screen that comes up when you're recording. We've used a high quality recording to host 2 international guests virtually, and it was so easy for them to join, set up. All they had to do was press a button and they were brought into the studio at the max quality for their computers and audio. You can even record up to 4K and adjust the audio pre or post production to make it sound like you're in a studio. I love using the chat features, the script, and the teleprompter to stay on top of discussion points. And it's not just for podcasters. If you want to edit long or short form video for Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube Shorts, or even host a live stream, it's got you covered. They have so many fun features to play around with. You can even add in customized branding and animate your captions so they move when you're speaking. And lastly, with the Magic Clips feature, we're able to make 10 plus pieces of content from one episode in literally just 1 second. I'm not kidding. You press a button and it creates these different pieces of content for you about the juiciest parts of your episode. So if you're ready to pull the trigger and get your content out there with a frictionless editor and recorder, be sure to use the code IFOMA, which is IFEOMA, to get 15% off your paid plans. And biggest of all, thank you so much to Riverside for sponsoring today's episode. Without further ado, let's get into today's conversation.
Welcome back to the Get Paid to Live podcast. I'm one of the co-hosts, Shah. This is my fiance, Iffy. 18 months ago, we quit our full-time jobs to pursue our entrepreneurial dream life. On this podcast, we talk about the lessons and the story behind our journeys in case it is helpful to any of you watching.
We're back with another one, and this time we are talking about myths.
Whoa.
We are talking about entrepreneurial Lord of the Rings myths. I have no idea. I'm not an expert on
Greek mythology.
No, not that.
Roman Empire.
We have experienced a lot in this past year, and we call it like our freshman year of entrepreneurship. Sophomore year. Because technically we started
at different times, and it's kind of questionable when you
became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you left corporate many, like 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But you had a full-time freelance client at one point, and then you left that. So that was like a turning point as well. So
yeah.
So I left in July. It's December. So it's been 12 plus 5, 17 months since I left.
Okay.
And then you left 3 months ahead. So it's been like 20 months for you.
Yeah. The vibe feels sophomore vibe.
Sophomore.
We feel like we're not freshmen,
yeah.
But we feel like sophomores. Like we're not anywhere close to the finish line, but we're not freshmen.
We're over like the excitement of like college.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to events every weekend.
Yeah.
We're not hanging out with our friends every day.
We're not doing like the things that don't feel aligned, like way off like you do when you're young, you know.
We're also not taking these like massive seminar classes that you have to.
We're still very much learning.
We're starting to take our major requirements.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. We're starting to do like the major required classes. We're kind of in this stage right now with our entrepreneurship journey, and I feel like we're learning a lot of things that we would tell our freshman selves, like don't do this or make sure you do this. And as the new year's approaching, it's just the perfect time to reflect on what, you know, if you're in that spot or you were in that spot, like what you should do going into the new year, what we want to avoid, you know, doing again. And so that's why we wanted to kind of consolidate all of these ideas into these 7 simple tips or myths that tend to trap new entrepreneurs, that trapped us. I feel like a lot of them got to me, at least.
Yeah, I feel like these are just like 7 things that we used to believe.
Yeah.
Or things that we constantly hear our like friends say or people say.
Other entrepreneurs.
Or both.
Yeah. I think it's the perception of what entrepreneurship is. And I think that tends to get into the minds of new entrepreneurs because you see what it's supposed to look like.
Right.
So by the time you're doing it, you think that's how you're supposed to move, like how you're supposed to do things. And I don't think they line up at all. And so we want to share some of those with you. So we're going to go through these myths and let us know if you have any myths that you have learned in your journey or things that you are just realizing for the first time. We'd be interested to know as well. And we're just going to power through these myths and tell you exactly why we've learned that they're not true and what we're doing instead. Okay, so let's start with number 1. This one I hear all the time. You need capital to start. You need investors. You need big investments. You just need like a lot of money. Seed funding, series A, B, C, D, E, and F to start a business. And I'm talking about like literally just like from 0 to 1. You need all this money. And that's something I didn't think that, you know, because I've always felt like I'm not like the typical like Silicon Valley business, you know, entrepreneur. So I never really felt like that. But wow, do I hear that so often from other people? And it's such a misconception, I think, because I actually think it's personally, I think it's the quite opposite. I don't think you should start with anything because you don't know how to manage, especially if you're new, because you don't know how to manage shit. You know, like you don't even know what you're doing, let alone having all this money to spend, not knowing what you're doing. I feel like it actually holds you back, you know?
No, I feel like it's more harmful than helpful because what money does is it just scales everything up. And when you don't know anything, you just have a bunch of problems. And you just, instead of like having this money to solve all these problems, what you end up doing is you just scale up the problems. And interesting. You lack solutions for those problems. Like, so for example, recently someone was talking about like they had this product idea that wasn't really validated yet, or it had some validation but hadn't really like cracked the customer and the problem it was solving and all that kind of stuff. And they started investing into like YouTube ads and Google ads, and it's like, you know, you're kind of like injecting money and capital into this, and you haven't even figured out the product yet, and all you've done is just like wasted money. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So like didn't get any sales through the advertisement, even though like they spent like $1,000 on the ad. So
it's in all aspects of business. Even when you're like hiring, I feel like you shouldn't just hire a team of 10 and you don't even know how to manage one person. You know, you shouldn't get all this funding and you don't know what works. Like even in social media marketing, I would get clients who were like, I'm hiring this marketer, that marketer, paid ad specialist, a graphic designer, and they don't have a system that works. And I'd always tell my clients, like, you figure out what works organically on your content. Like you can almost expect that you can always get like 10,000 views per video. Then you hire someone to maintain it. You don't hire someone to create it for you, because you're going to spend a lot of money in the process when you could have just figure that out for free, like at least without spending extra money. And then when you do come across that thing, you know how to take it to the next level. You're not hiring to like, you're not like artificially injecting your business. And then also, even if that does work, which I think is very rare, that means that baseline by default, your business takes a lot of money to run. Like for it to even do anything, you need all this funding. So I think it's really good when you have a business that you've started and you started it bootstrapped, you didn't have any money, you didn't have anything, and you made it work with very low expenses or costs, and it works. Then that means you don't need a lot to keep it going. It's actually a good thing.
And then at that point, it might make sense to get funding, because now you have something that works and now you just want to scale it up. Because a lot of times that's what funding does. That's what investors are looking for. They're trying to find an established business that's working on a small scale and take it to the next level. And of course, there are like those businesses that just have high entry costs. So just reading a tweet this morning, and the business was like basically taking a kind of a traditional outsourcing agency, buying it, and then turning it into like an AI automation agency.
Interesting.
And then so that would require you buying an agency that already has an established business. So it would probably cost you like $500,000. But like in order to pull that business off, you need to know some stuff. Like that's not going to be your first business as an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
You know, maybe it's like your second or third or something like that at the earliest. For the vast majority of entrepreneurs, you don't need any funding. You can go so far just on your own with a laptop and Google search, ChatGPT.
It's never been easier right now, and I feel like there's so many things. Like you and I, we didn't start with any like funding per se, other than like I guess we're self-funded, if you want to put it that way.
Like money from our jobs.
And I think a lot of people can do that. Just use what you make through your 9 to 5, through your day job, and use that money because it motivates you to work harder at that job just so you can fund whatever projects you have. And 2, you see what's necessary. I think you just see like, can I survive without hiring a paid ad specialist? Probably. I can do that because if you find a way organically to make it work, you don't have to lean on all these other things. I think in the beginning, you see entrepreneurs who are very successful. They have a marketing team, they have an operations team, and you think you need that. And I don't think in the beginning, like we can't speak for, that level where we're not there yet, but in the beginning, you really don't need any of that. All you need is yourself, maybe it's a few social media accounts, and get to work. Like talk to customers, and you can use your phone, you can use your laptop, there's so many little tools that you can use
on the like hiring people and stuff. It's funny because I guess it's a slight tangent of like getting investment. So maybe it's just like a different version. Like I need funding to start. Like I need people to start. You know what I mean? So I guess like you can go a lot further on your own than you don't realize. And I guess the first point, just being alone is a great constraint because it forces you to have very optimized processes. And 9 times out of 10, there is a better, faster, more efficient way of doing it. You just haven't figured it out yet. You just have to just keep working at it. You'll figure it out. The second thing, it reminds me of another aspiring entrepreneur.
Okay.
He's like, he's talking about how he has this idea and how he has 3 co-founders. And I'm just like, okay. So what did all the co-founders do? He's like, I got one guy for like the COO to do ops, got a sales guy, got a
finance
technical guy, and then the finance, like a CFO. And I'm like, wait. How much money have you guys made? Like, what is there?
Right. If
what finances are there to manage?
Exactly.
Like, what is the CFO going to be doing?
Exactly. It's like what works, right? Like what I was saying with my customers or with my clients, what works is like a marketing system that makes profit, basically. And this, like with your business, if you have a product or service that is profitable and you're earning money, something's working. Then you can justify how much you need to hire or if you even need to hire.
Because now it's an investment.
It's an investment.
I'm losing money by, I don't know, answering emails or keeping up with emails because like I'm making, I don't know, 30, 50 grand a month. So like every hour is worth
so much for me. So I can hire someone at a junior level, maybe like 20,
just
$50 an hour, to handle this so I can work on closing the next deal or whatever the thing is, right? It's like
So like if you're like a retail store on Shopify, you're packaging goods and you have to ship them out, like, and you're doing like 50, 100 grand a month and it's still all you. It doesn't make sense for you to be packaging all the shipments because you can just hire someone and pay them like, I don't know, $25, $30 an hour, which is like really pretty good pay for that kind of work. But that would be a huge investment for you because your time's probably worth like 10, 20 times.
Yeah. That's a huge thing. Like the people, that's another cost. I feel like people they take in like having way too many people because if you have people, that is extra time now you're allotting to managing.
It's not just about money.
It's not just having people. You need to know how to lead and manage for that to even run effectively.
That's a whole different animal.
And a lot of companies, if you really look up like how many people they started with or how many people they're at, you'd be surprised at how small they are. Like $1 million companies with 5 people, 3, even 1. Like you don't need a lot. You can hire contractors. We're a big fan of like part-time contract work if you need, and as a contractor I highly recommend it, and I've seen all the clients I've worked with do it, and it's a lot better for their time and their energy and for their money. And I feel like you don't need to have, it's sexy to have co-founders and make it look like you have this full business, but the reality is you're losing a lot of money, I feel like, in the process. And like me right now, I plan to stay solo as long as humanly possible, because like you were saying, there's so much room in your productivity that you don't even realize. Like, because I've had to do everything myself, post my own shit, like do my own podcast, close my own deals, like my own brand deals. It's like, one, I learned so much doing everything myself.
Now you can teach someone and manage someone more effectively than do it for you. Yeah.
Exactly. And then it's like, I know now I have to perform at a certain, like, I write best in the morning. I make content best like mid-afternoon, best like editing in the middle of the day. And it's like, I've optimized that because I've had to do all of it myself. But now that I know I can do that, like, it doesn't make sense to hire like so many different editors and this and that, because I know that I can do this. And it's like, maybe it won't last forever, but it's like, how long can I go doing this and learning all this information so that when I am ready, it's a seamless transition.
I guess we uncovered 2 myths in the first myth. Okay. So it's like, first myth is I need funding, and then the second myth is I can't do it alone.
Ooh, yes. Yes, exactly.
Growing a business organically is very powerful because the evidence, the signal, the validation of your product or your service is the fact that people are willing to give you money for it. You know, so that's kind of toward like why outside funding isn't necessary, and sometimes a lot of times it's actually harmful. It kind of doesn't allow you to explore products and services organically and find that validation. That's actually great, because like, if you've kind of taken this mindset of like, okay, I'm not going to take funding and I'm going to figure out how to do it, you just don't have the resources to hire people, you know, because it's just, you don't have any outside funding and you're just bootstrapping it. You're self-funding this whole thing. It constrains the types of businesses that you pursue. It's like, okay, I'm going to try to find those opportunities that I can validate on my own, that I can build on my own, that I can provide on my own. That's a really powerful approach, because before that point, you're going to build and define really streamlined, efficient processes.
Which makes the people you're hiring's life so much easier.
Will make it easier. And will make the business more scalable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, it's kind of ironic, like, get funding and hire people so I can scale this thing. But really, probably the best way to scale is to do it super scrappy and all on your own at the start. So you really lock it in and make it really efficient and simple. You want to make it as simple and efficient as possible. And then you can get the money, you can bring in the people, and it'll scale much more easily. And I feel like if you try to scale before the business is simple and streamlined, you're going to run into a lot of headaches.
Well, that's a perfect segue into one of the myths too, scaling. I definitely fell into this trap, which is I need to figure out how to scale first. If this idea is not scalable right now, I can't pursue it. Which is so not. First of all, that is limiting you in so many ways, like educationally, physically, like you were just holding yourself back from the data that you need to learn how to scale anyway. So I just think it's so ironic, but I genuinely thought that.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to figure out how to scale. Like, people try to figure out how to scale when you have 0 customers. When they have no customers, no one is even vaguely interested that they have a business, and they're up at night trying to figure out how to scale this
how
thing.
This thing is going to become like, the next Amazon.
Before you scale to nationwide, figure out how to get one person to give you money for your product or service. Like, solve that problem first, and then try to get a second person to do it, and then try to get 10 people, and then 100. That's how that's
scaling.
You know, that's scaling. Solve the problem in front of you, not 10 miles ahead. You know what I mean?
I think we get so excited as new entrepreneurs, and you're looking so far. And again, I think it's the trap of what you see. Like, you see this company, the successful people, they've scaled so well and they built their company to scale. But before there was that scalable company, there was a scrappy one by one. Like, I always bring up the story of Airbnb and how they literally started by going house to house with they would take all the photos of the house and they would list it. The B&Bs at the time, they would like go to the host's home, the one that they were putting on Airbnb, and they would take pictures of it and list it themselves, and they knew every host. And I think that's a good important story to hear if you want to look it up or just read more about it, because you would think, oh, Airbnb, such a cool model. I have an app. I could have all these. It scales so well. And it's like, that's not how they started at all. And they knew their customers one by one. They were talking to them. They visited their homes. And I think all of that stuff is actually very important. It's not just like for the sake of, scaling and all that. It's really so that you have a good understanding of your customer and you have a good understanding of your business model. I think when you do things one by one, you learn these little nuances that you wouldn't learn otherwise. And as a founder, or if you are in the founding team, you need to know that. Yeah.
It's like these details that come up like 1%, 0.1% of the time. Where if you're working with 10 customers, for example, you're never going to see those really rare cases, those rare events. But then the moment you get to like 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million customers, these little rare things become really big problems. And if you didn't solve them in the small scale, it's just going to be these massive headaches that could potentially kill the business.
Exactly. And these like hidden gems, and like, I don't know.
They're not even gems. They're hidden.
Like a bad thing.
Yeah,
it's like
poison.
Because you don't see them ahead of time. And I feel like even though I have no successful business to present, I feel like what I've learned from that is talking to the customer now, like really getting to know them as much as I can, even in whatever small ways I can. Like with my community, with Sans Raison, I really like to have individual conversations with as many people as I can, when I enjoy that more than, a big group. But I'm learning so much about them. Like there's products I have in mind that I want to create, and I'm just asking them about themselves, what they need, what they're struggling with.
Understanding their life.
Just understanding their life. And I feel like that's something you could do in any type of business or anything, even if it's content, like commenting and really talking to these people. It's not scalable. Sure. Maybe you have like one-on-one calls for now. That's your product for now. And it's like, that's fine, because you get to learn so much about what they're going through. And maybe you find a hidden gem, maybe you find a hidden poison, like, oh, maybe I should have never gone down that route because they hate that. These are things that you learn by doing the non-scalable things. And basically scaling is not your issue yet. You solve that when that is your issue. When you're like, we have so many customers, we have so much opportunity that we don't have enough capacity resources to solve it. That's a scaling problem. Right now, you don't have a scaling problem. You just have a customer problem, validation problem. And I think we get it confused because we look way too far ahead when really we should be looking at people who are just a little bit ahead of us and like, oh, what are they doing? Not what Jeff Bezos is doing.
The story of Airbnb is a like prime example of Paul Graham's advice of do things that don't scale. So Paul Graham started YC. YC is like this
it's a venture
studio thing, and Airbnb came from YC actually.
Oh really? Okay, that's cool.
So do things that don't scale. It's not my advice, it's Paul Graham's advice, who's like astronomically more successful.
And I definitely heard, for some reason I heard that when I was reading this book and they were telling the story of Airbnb. I was like, that just sounds so right. I can't even like explain why, but I used to be like, oh, if I do this bit, like literally my first consulting business, the one that like I went after right after I left freelancing for the first time, I was like, okay, I'm going to do my own thing. And I was like, I'm going to be a consultant, and now I can finally sort of like scale my services and service this many people and have these packages. I was just making all the wrong plans, and I was making this perfect plan on paper because to me, I was like, finally, this is scalable. I can like do a lot of these, and like I can have a system. But did anyone ever said that they needed any of those packages? No. Like, I think it's so easy to jump to, but it's just like catch yourself in that moment and be like, okay, what do people need? Not what I want to do. What does the customer need? And even if that's not scalable, how can I just learn from that? Like just start there and then let the scaling will, when you need to scale, I think it'd be very obvious, like, what needs to happen. So I don't think that is typically the problem in the beginning. So, this was a good one. This is a myth that I feel like everybody needs to hear. This is a myth that needs a lot of busting. I don't have to sell.
Ooh.
That one, I don't want to be icky and salesy and all this stuff, which I don't think you have to be icky, right? But the idea that you don't have to sell as an entrepreneur, as a business person, is just, it's utter nonsense when you get into the weeds of it.
Yeah. So I feel like there's some aspect of human nature, or just like this thing we have programmed into our DNA, or maybe it's just something we learn through life, but there's just a tendency for humans to try to deceive other humans to take resources away from them.
Yeah.
So that's, the modern language is scam. So they're trying to scam me kind of thing. And so I feel like this scam phenomenon and selling, there's like overlap in people's minds.
Yes.
Like there's overlap between this concept of sales and scamming people.
And people find
and so that, I think that's what holds a lot of people back.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sell because I don't want to scam people. That's not what selling is. Yeah. Okay, so just taking a step back, as an entrepreneur, fundamentally what you're doing is you're finding a problem, and you're creating a solution for it. So there's a pain, there's something that people are struggling with, and you're finding a way to solve that problem.
Exactly.
Let's think of a specific example. If you had a flat tire on the side of the highway, that's a very obvious, clear problem. If someone just like stops and helps you change your tire, like they just like helped you and they solved your problem. You know what I mean? So it's like a good thing.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship is basically like that, but you're solving problems that are so painful and so severe that people are willing to pay money for it because they face it on some consistent basis.
It could be as simple as like Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix. So I
need something to watch when I eat.
Yeah, or on the weekend I'm bored, or
like I want to see this new movie that everyone's talking about, and I don't want to be missing out.
Exactly.
Let me, and like that's a consistent issue that you have. Or food, Uber Eats, like all these companies that do, they're very simple, but if you think of life without them, you'd be like, oh.
Yeah. So from that perspective, like you selling as an entrepreneur is just letting people know about these solutions. And
that you have. Yeah.
If you're talking to the right person, if you're talking to the right customer, they're going to be thanking you
1,000%
for creating this thing and giving them the opportunity to like pay for it.
Yeah, a lot
pay
of
for
people
the solution. For everyone else, they're not the customer. Like they either don't have that problem, or it's not that big of a problem that, for them that they're willing to pay for it.
And that's where you hear the scam, because it's just not, I mean, there are genuine scams, right? But that's where you tend to hear that language like, oh, that's too expensive, or that's a scam. You're not the customer, because there's somebody out there who's willing to pay for it. I'm not talking about the people that are literally scamming people, like promising them fake services for money. That's not what I'm talking about. But just say I've seen like my mom and I were just talking about a meal service. Were you there? I don't know if you were there, but we were talking about a meal service. And it's just it's a higher end, I would say like more healthy, vegan type, meal service. And it's very expensive. For a weekly, like 3 meals, you get like, it's like over $200, right?
No.
And my mom's like, that's way too much. And I'm like, well, there's somebody out there who genuine, because it's a successful business. Yeah, there's somebody out there who thinks that, thank you, this is finally what I need. Maybe their dietary requirements are not met by the typical like HelloFresh or whatever. So it's like there's somebody out there who is thankful that this is here, and the money is like an afterthought. They're like, oh, whatever, sure, take my money. I just want that thing because I need it so bad. It helps me so much. And I had to really change this mindset that I had around selling. It's not that I felt like selling was ever icky or anything. No. I just felt that like for some reason selling was something some people had to do to get their product out there.
Okay.
And for some reason, I wouldn't have to do I wouldn't have to sell the way they sell. I wouldn't have to do it the way that they did it. And I knew I would have to talk about the product, but I just didn't think that I would have to like speak on a pain point and help them arrive at this solution and then show them exactly how. Like, I thought it was kind of like cheesy and basic to walk through the process, like how typical, like you see, I mean, we're being sold stuff all the time. Like if you just go on your feeds, if you open it's all these are different versions of selling a product or a service. And so I just thought I wouldn't have to do it that way.
Right.
But doing content, I'm realizing there's a reason people sell it in that way. There's a reason people walk through the product and they show you a green screen and they say, follow for more. There's a reason people say, go to my bio. And I thought I wouldn't have to say that or do that because, my product would just be so obvious. And it's like, people have so much to do. They're not reading. They're not listening. You have to imagine like you're just having a soulless person looking at your stuff. How would you get their attention? There's a reason salespeople do the things that they do, because they're trying to engage all of these different parts of you that are basically just, you're seeing so much at all points of the day. People have to get your attention. There's a reason they repeat the same thing over and over again. And I thought I wouldn't have to do those things, right? But it's like, no, that stuff works because it's like literally in our psychology, like how we respond to things. And what really changed my view on selling and the whole idea of it is, one, I'm a shopper, I'm a consumer. I love products and buying things and whatnot. And I never, when I'm like at Aritzia or like in my like Home Goods or like wherever I like to shop, I never feel like I'm being sold to, like, oh, somebody's trying to sell me something. Like when you go to Costco and people are like, hey, did you want to sign up for this? Like that feels like sales to me because I don't need it, right? But when I go into my favorite stores or I'm shopping on my favorite boutique, I never feel like I'm being sold to. But they're selling to me. And I think that's one thing I had to realize is that I'm the customer. I'm the right person for their thing. And so that's why it doesn't feel like that to me. So you have to imagine your customer like the customer you are to somebody else, where you don't even realize that they're selling to you because you like their stuff so much.
You like their stuff, or it's just such a big problem for you that
like,
it's a relief that you came across this product, this solution for it.
And I switched my mindset to, people are not scared of me when I sell. They're happy to give me their money. It's like an affirmation thing, but I think you need to realize it because there is a company out there, you're happy to give them your money. I don't even care if you're like a football fan or whatever it is. Like there's a company out there where you're like, take it. I don't take my, whatever you need to do, because it's so relieving to you. And I think when you flip it and say that you are that for somebody, it motivates you to be like, I can just explain it to them. And
it's because the perceived value that the customer is getting is far in excess of how much they're paying for it. So a great example that Alex Hormozy gave was, if someone was selling Ferraris for $10,000, like you would find like, I guess he was giving this example in a different context, but I'll repurpose it for this one. If someone was like, hey, I'm selling this Ferrari for $10,000, like you would be excited.
Right. It'd be like, easy.
Like, because it's a great investment.
Right.
And most
There's
of the
a lot
time,
of value, perceived value.
Yeah, a lot of value. And a lot of times for small businesses, like these one-person businesses, scrappy startups, you're usually doing these B2B products. And so usually what you're selling is going to give businesses an opportunity to make 10x how much they're paying. So it's an investment. So like, for example, I just got a Zoom subscription, and then Zoom has like all these upgrades and add-ons and stuff like that. And so from like one perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to pay I don't know, like $20 or $30 a month for Zoom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, another subscription. But then if I think about it, it's like, oh, I'm using Zoom as the main way to facilitate my class, to deliver the AI Builders Bootcamp that I'm doing. And then each seat is $700. So it's like, okay, if I get one student, it's worth
it.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that's the mindset shift. One, if you feel like icky or like scamming people or whatever, it's like either you're lying to people, or your product isn't valuable and you don't believe in your product. So it's like, why try to sell something that isn't valuable, that doesn't help people? So find the thing that you also like get excited, like you feel like it's
honestly a good deal.
something you believe in,
yeah.
Something you believe is valuable and it helps people.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, this one is really interesting and got me a lot. Your business idea has to be genius. It has to be the most innovative thing to hit the market
something
yet.
no one has ever
thought of or done before. This is quite literally the opposite.
Yeah. Really? I mean, I'll just give a personal experience, like with the AI Builders Bootcamp again. Like when I was first doing YouTube and stuff and like making this transition to entrepreneurship, like I didn't want to do a course because I felt like that's what a lot of YouTubers were doing.
It was typical.
Yeah. Then it turned out like the course was like the first thing that actually worked.
Yeah.
So it was like,
and worked by a landslide.
Yeah, by a huge margin. Like that was like the first course I think made like $12,000 or something like that.
Wow.
So that was the first thing that actually worked for me. I was like, okay, I'm going to do anything but a course. So I'm like exploring all these ideas, but then it's like, oh, okay, I could have just done a course. And this feeling of like, oh, everyone else is doing it, so that's why I don't want to do it. That's like literally the exact opposite of what you should be thinking. If everyone else is doing it, they're doing it for a reason. Like it's working. So rather than just like writing it off, what I should have done is investigated it, been more curious. And if I would have taken the time, I would have realized that, oh, I make educational content on YouTube for free. They come to me to learn, and they like how I explain things. They like how I teach these concepts. Yeah. So that's the value I'm providing to them. Yeah. What's like the obvious next step above free YouTube lectures? Oh, paid lectures, paid in-person cohort course is like not much of a leap beyond free YouTube videos. So if I didn't have that like mindset blocking me, maybe I would have arrived at this course sooner.
Because the stuff you're teaching is stuff you could have taught a year
ago. A lot of this. Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's what's the ironic part.
Because a lot of the course content is like taking my YouTube videos and like remixing it, repackaging it, and then delivering it live in class.
That's what's so insane. It's like I feel like the things that actually end up working are the things you already knew. It's the stuff that you knew from day one. You just didn't have the confidence that that was good enough. And you think that it has to be, we overcomplicate it. We're like, it has to be this super complex thing. But actually, in fact, when even me, as I was talking to some of my customers, they were just like, if you could just make this a quick, easy PDF.
Oh, right.
And I was just like, that's what people want. And as a consumer,
what were you doing? You're making this like
I was going
to
make this freelance sort of course thing.
Right. And like community and
exclusive podcasts. And it was just this whole thing. Right. And the whole point was, everything has arrived. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast too. Like I had a video about quitting my job that really blew up, and it seemed like quitting was really a pain point that I could help solve, because I know I've done it before. I've done it a lot, actually.
You're really good at it.
I'm really good at quitting jobs, but not only just quitting jobs, but like
doing something, finding an alternative way
to live that's not in corporate or what I came from. And so I kind of was like overcomplicating it with like, I need to teach people how to quit and guide them through sessions and make this whole coaching thing. And then I was like, well, that's a little complicated and dense, so let me do a course. And I actually was speaking to one of the people that I was doing like this beta coaching with, and she was just like, if you could just give me high level how I need to freelance, quick checklist, very easy. Checklist. I was like, oh yeah, like why wouldn't I just do that? You know, and it's like, that's what people need. And as a consumer, like when I quit 4 years ago, I would have totally bought that. Like I don't think
quitting your job checklist
easy, because when you're wanting to quit, you want to quit fast. You don't want to waste time with a course and go through all this stuff, and you just want to get out of the pain you're feeling. And it kind of took me back to what the customer actually needed in that moment, or what I needed in that moment. And so like, I think we try to make it so grand because we want to be different. And I get, like, as an entrepreneur, you literally want to be different, but you have to take yourself out of it, and really it's really about the customer. That's like another thing, but like it is just about them. It is not about you. And that is something I didn't understand, because to me, like, I prided myself in being different and being an entrepreneur, so I have to do something cool, sexy, genius. But what people need is often very basic. And I want to bring up something like, it's a quote that you laugh at, but it's like is a lot of times we're looking for gaps in the market. Okay. But is there a market in the gaps? I just think we have to, okay, it sounds silly, but it's like really true. Like we're always trying to be different. Like, ooh, this is the gap, you know, like this is what I don't see out there. What if I try to make this, you know, like table on wheels and this and that? Like, we're trying to do something different, but like, is there a market there? Do people actually want that?
Right.
And I think people are very simple. Think about yourself. Like, do you have all these quick, crazy gadgets in your house? No, you have very simple things. You got your couch, you got your TV, and people are simple. Like, we're not that complex. So stop trying to like make this new futuristic thing, at least to start. I think if you've done business and you're on, like, if you're the Jeff Bezos and trying to start things in orbit, sure. But like a lot of new entrepreneurs, you just need to start with problems that people have, and problems are very simple. They're not like this complicated thing. So I feel like well, the problems can be complicated, but the solutions can be very simple. So I just thought that was interesting. But a good rule of thumb that Shaheen brought up one time was like, you should go towards the things that are not sexy, actually.
Right.
I think as entrepreneurs, we want to go towards the things that are so interesting to us, or so sexy.
Right.
Like, ooh, that's so cool. But that's usually what you don't have the most value or knowledge on, I feel like.
It's sexy because it's new, it's novel, it's exciting. A lot of the times that's because you have this uninformed optimism, which means you haven't overcome, you haven't spent enough time with that problem or with that idea. Like, so rule of thumb is, if it's sexy, you probably don't know enough about it. And if you don't know a lot about it, you probably can't provide a whole lot of value, or you won't be able to create a simple solution for it, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. That's just like, it's so true. And I think all the things like the course material, and for me, like the freelance checklist or whatever, like these are very unsexy. It's kind of like been there, done that kind of vibe. Even quitting my job, it's like been there, done that. But that stuff is the most popular across all my platforms. Anytime, even when like physically, when people come to me, that's what they want to talk about. Of course, it's interesting to me still, because, you know, it was a huge pain point that I overcame. But it to me, I'm like on to the next thing. For me, business is sexy right now. Like, oh, how do I start this? How do I start this new life and lifestyle? But the things that people find very valuable, that they've literally told me is valuable, is that freelance stuff, is that quitting your job, that first step that to me is like, that was 5 years ago, you know, but I probably have more value to offer there. So, okay, this one is sort of about committing. It's like, I can keep 1 foot in and 1 foot out and successfully, you know, go through my business.
I don't
have to commit.
I can build a business while still working full time. I feel
you can.
You definitely can, but it's going to take a lot longer.
I personally think so. Observing people, I do think so.
Okay, so let me just talk from my personal experience. Of course, there are going to be examples and people who work their full-time job and are, you know, building and growing businesses on the side. It also depends, you know, it's not entirely clear like what they're doing at their job that allows them to do that. But I would say for me, when I quit and I went all in, it was qualitatively different. Like, I feel like I was learning a lot faster. I shook a lot of the bad mindsets. You know, there were a lot of mindsets I had that were just holding me back. You know, a lot of things I had to unlearn, and a lot of new things I had to learn. And I feel like that happened very quickly after leaving my job. And it was all driven by this feeling of, oh, I have to figure out how to generate income. I can't rely on a salary.
It's huge.
And I feel like the salary just kind of like makes you comfortable. It allows you to be lazy in your thinking. It allows you to have bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I didn't have the salary, then there wasn't any room for bad habits. Like I had to figure it out, basically.
Yeah. I think it's really important to like note as human beings, literally, I don't think we can like negate this part of us or our human nature. Like we're always craving comfort, like at all times. Even if we're uncomfortable, we're looking for the next moment where we can like we're already wired to do that. So it's like when you, I feel like by nature, have a job that is giving you a consistent check, you are just more comfortable.
Yeah.
Like there are things that you are going to kind of subconsciously be like, I don't have to do that because you have a job. Like when I had a job and when I didn't have a job, complete 180. Even when I just had like a few clients recently to like generate some extra income, there was this, it's almost insane night and day how it just took over me. All of a sudden, I'm like craving a new meal every time after work. I'm like, I don't feel like working out. It's crazy. And I feel like I wasn't even trying to do that. But when I had a job, it's like, oh, it's like you have an understanding that money is going to come now, or you don't have to work as hard. You don't have to do something. And maybe that's not everybody. I can't speak for every situation, but I think that's just kind of what subconsciously happens when you have a consistent paycheck coming in. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're a freelancer, whatever, you don't have that stability. You literally just don't have it. So you have, and I'm not saying there's not comfortable freelancers or entrepreneurs. It exists. Again, we're always craving comfort, but you just don't have that room. So you have to always be thinking of the next solution, the next step. Like there's no like, I can take PTO. Like it doesn't exist. Yeah. So I think when you switch over to that full time, you are just with the right intentions. I think you're giving yourself room to find every possible solution there is. Right. I personally enjoy the shock. I think, or maybe I don't enjoy it, but I agree.
Right. It's good for you.
I feel like it's good for you. And I think
it's never going to feel good. You know what I mean? Because it's very uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable.
But it is very rewarding.
I think so too. And I think if that's your goal, like if that's your vision, is to be a full-time entrepreneur, it's practice. Mm-hmm. It's teaching you how to do it. Yeah. Get your savings enough to where you can survive for a little bit, but I think the pressure is very good because it forces you to figure shit out quickly. We were literally running out of money so fast over the past 6 months, and I was like, shit, I have to go back to work. I have to find a job immediately. And I did. And like that wouldn't have happened if I didn't know how to like think on my feet quickly. And
it wasn't a job, it was a freelance
gig. A freelance gig. But still, I think all of that has taught me how to survive and not like survive and run something at the same time. Like it's just I feel like it's invaluable what you learn when you're under that pressure and when you have to fully commit, and you're not going to have the room to like all your habits that you do with your job, like, oh, I'm sad that I didn't get this, or oh, I'm sad. You're not going to be sitting around sad about it anymore. You're going to be out in the field hunting customers to see what didn't work. And I think that gets you data faster. Like, sure, I've been making my own schedule for the past however many months, and am I doing the right thing? I don't know, but I am moving, because there's no sitting around doesn't feel good when you have no money coming in. So you're like, I will do everything under the sun to figure this out. So I think it's really important to commit fast. Or if you can't right now, make a plan of how you're going to commit, because that information, it's out there. You just need to get it. Yeah. And so the more you do, the more you learn. Yep. Another one is sort of like this perfectionistic view of entrepreneurship. Like everything's waiting for some kind of
conditions.
Exactly. Waiting for the jackpot.
Perfect idea.
Exactly. I can wait until the perfect idea hits me.
Perfect timing, when I have the right funding, when I have the right people to start to do something about it. And that perfect timing, especially if you're doing nothing prior to that, is not going to happen. Right. Like if you are moving,
that kind of beautiful synergy can happen. But if you're doing nothing and you're literally just in your head thinking of all these perfect things that are going to happen at the right time, it's not going to happen.
Right. I feel like there's something Hormozy said. It was the perfect time to start a business was 5 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So the next best is right now.
Exactly. It's like, oh my God, you miss opportunity so fast.
Right.
Like, if we were to do this in COVID,
Right.
like, and we wanted this,
Like the
feel
podcast?
any of it,
Yeah.
our content, these products.
I was doing content during COVID.
but like the way we're doing it now.
Right. Yeah. Making a video every
When
single
everybody
week.
was home,
Yeah.
the flopping sweatshirt business I
Right,
started,
right.
how would have done back then. It's just like everyone
If
was
I would have,
thriving back then.
if we would have been doing what we're
This.
doing now, but 5 years ago, we would be 5 years ahead.
I really
basically.
think and I feel like a lot of people who started back then are now having sustainable $1 million businesses easy.
Yeah, and I feel like the way to think about it is that entrepreneurship is about accumulating skills. And you start like stacking skills, bringing skills together, and there are these like inflection points. There are these like critical points where it's like, oh, I just learned these 7 skills and I still make the same amount of money. But then you add this other skill of, I don't know, how to write a good hook.
Yeah.
And now you have this 10x in your revenue. You know, they'll call it
simple shifts.
Charlie Munger calls it a Lollapalooza effect. In physics, they call it like a critical point.
Okay.
Like at certain scales, you get these phase transitions, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what entrepreneurship is all about. So if you think of it in terms of, it's skill development, it's professional development, it's personal development, then it's like, it's the same way as if you were trying to learn the piano or you're trying to learn the guitar or trying to learn how to draw. It's not that you have to wait for the perfect timing of like, I'm going to wait till there's a sale at Guitar Center so I can get a good deal on the piano. It's like, why?
How would that predict how good you're going to be at the thing?
Go find the instrument and start practicing or start watching YouTube videos. Like just start in whatever capacity, start learning the skill right now. And
100%.
Entrepreneurship is just like that because it's not just one skill you have to learn. It's a set of skills, but it's just learning. And so if you want to make progress, just start learning as soon as possible.
And just really understanding that like this whole luck, I think when we get into this perfectionistic mindset, we think like luck is a huge factor,
right?
Which it can be, right? But it's not the default. Luck helps those who help themselves. Yeah. And I think you need to like rewire it to where it's like you need the skill first,
right?
And then luck will come at the right time and enhance the skills you've already been working on. It's not going to give it to you.
Right.
It's not going to give you everything. It's going to give you the opportunity to use that skill that you've been working on.
It's luck comes to those who put themselves out there. Luck comes to those who are putting in the work. Like a great example was last night. Anna was saying how she had quit her job, didn't really know what she
she's on the podcast.
She's going to be on the podcast. She was saying that she had quit and she didn't really know what her business was going to be. She just knew she wanted to do art. Yeah. So she had like made a website. She made an Instagram. She did all these. She was putting in the work. Right. And then randomly,
the opportunity
came, and the guy's like, "Oh, do you have a website?" And she's like, "Yeah,
actually, I do."
And so luck, she got lucky because she had put in the work. Yeah. You know what I mean? If that would have happened 6 months earlier, she'd be like, no, but, and then maybe
and this
the
was
guy
like an
wouldn't.
Executive of the gallery that she now like, or I guess he used to work there, but this was a executive level person asking her if she had, the resources or whatever to make this deal happen. And she was lucky to be in the presence of that person at the right time, at the right place to get to turn that into a deal. But she was ready, ready enough. You don't have to be super ready. And I just want to note on that real quick. I fell into a trap of like, I need to get so much experience from other people before I'm ready to do my own thing. And that meant working for people, being under people because I'm like, oh, well, they can teach me something or they can do this, whatever. If you are going to do that, I will just say that's not a bad thing, but you still need to be simultaneously starting it. That shouldn't be delaying any action you're taking. That should just be supplement, if any. I personally think I should have just done it anyway, but I want to say like working for people for way too long when you've already gotten enough skills can be another perfectionistic trap that holds you back.
And also who you work for makes a big difference. So like you can learn something from anyone. Everyone is your master in something.
Yeah.
The only time it really makes sense to prolong this kind of thing is if that person you're learning from has done or is doing exactly what you want to be your future. And 99% of the time that's not true. If you want to be an entrepreneur and you're working like a job, like you're working a corporate job, no one is an entrepreneur. They have climbed the corporate ladder. It's just a different mindset. It's a different world. It's not bad. It's not worse. It's different. And while they can teach you, while you can learn a lot from that, you can't learn everything. You're gonna learn much more that's immediately applicable to your success as an entrepreneur by just diving into it and doing it and figuring it out.
Yes, 100%. I agree. The last one is one of our favorites.
What is it?
Basically that your specialty is enough. That will make you a good entrepreneur. So like I'm a marketer. What made me a great marketer is going to make me a great entrepreneur.
Right.
For you, what made me a great data scientist is going to make me a great entrepreneur. And essentially this myth is just kind of over capitalizing on what you already have and negating all of the other aspects of entrepreneurship that are extremely important. And good entrepreneur, like we were saying, is a mix and a variety and collection of skills. So you need to be just as eager about these other parts as you are about your specialty, because it's not synonymous with success just because you're good at one aspect of business.
It's about learning enough of a lot of skills that is the main driver of success. Like becoming the world's greatest coder is would be helpful, but spending an additional 10 hours like getting better at coding versus learning how to sell, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Going from like the top let's say 10% of coders to the top 5% of coders isn't going to be as valuable as going from like the bottom 50% of sales to the top 50% of sales. You know what I mean? From being a bad salesperson to a decent salesperson. And it's probably going to take the same amount of effort.
Yeah. And I think like I want to note here too that like using your specialty is still valuable and it's still good, like to help you get started. Because I'm always like, do what you know. Like, don't try to reinvent the wheel somewhere else. But it's kind of like you need to be spending a lot of time on those other things that you don't know very well. Like for instance, for me, marketing is my thing. I am kind of more comfortable with like, okay, blogs and newsletters and social media platforms and editing and photos, which is good. I should continue to do that and kind of use that to get my footing. So making content is like an obvious way for me to sell a product because that's what I know already. I don't have to start learning how to do in-person events or something like that, whatever. But for me, marketing is not always selling. So selling was a huge thing that I didn't really know how to do. And for some reason, I thought I didn't have to do. And so I should be spending, I would say just like even more time understanding that and like, how do I sell using my specialty? Like, okay, let me use my content to sell, but I need to learn how to sell. So I need to be practicing how to sell in that content. And like, whatever you're good at, like if you're a coder or like whatever, if you're a data specialist, it's like, okay, I know how to do that. So I could probably make a really good product, but I also don't know how to market. And it's like, I need to be looking at people who are really good at marketing or other data people who have really good marketing, be like, how are they mixing those two skills to like make their whole business work or like whatever the case is. Basically, you could just get very lost in your own zone and forget that like there's so many other aspects that make businesses like pop off. I feel like there's two things. It's like building the right thing, something that's valuable, like we were saying, and then there's also like being able to sell that thing.
Yeah. So I guess fundamentally there are like three key parts, at least as I see right now, of like what makes a business work. So if you're selling any product or service, there are like three key parts. That's like the idea, like the thing, the problem that you're solving, and figuring out okay, what is the problem? How am I going to solve it? Who are the customers? Like doing all that kind of stuff. The second piece of it is actually developing the product or the service. Okay, how am I going to execute it? How is it going to work? How's the delivery going to work? And then finally is like marketing it and selling it.
Yeah.
And so depending on your background, you're going to excel in some of these. So if, coming from a data science background, maybe I'll be on the product development side, or maybe customer analytics and understanding the markets. From like a marketing angle, you're going to maybe know how to sell something, how to market something, make content about it,
Right.
get it in front, get eyeballs on it, teach people about it. And so like, whatever it is, everyone's going to have their different skill sets and they're going to excel in different parts of these three aspects of a business. If I'm kind of coming in as like a coder and it's like, okay, I want to build software and to build SaaS products, I'm going to over index on the middle part. My background is all about building. So I'm just going to be thinking about the building aspect, and I'll give relatively low weight. What do I actually build? And how am I going to sell this thing? You know what I mean? My coding skills aren't enough. I need to figure out the idea. I need to have a system, a process for identifying pain points, identifying customers, talking to them, validating ideas. I need to have systems for this. I need to develop skills around all these things. I guess I've been making content, but still like weak on the sales and marketing and communication relative to like the coding side of things.
Right.
So I need to learn skills and develop processes for this aspect as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's incredibly important. And I think it keeps you busy. Like it definitely will keep you busy, because I think if you have a lot of time to like, you're like, why is this not working? That means that there's like an aspect that you're probably overlooking and you're not being curious enough about to make your product or your business, service, whatever, work. So those are our myths.
Wow.
And I'm curious to see what we'll think about this later, because we're also still learning, trying to figure it out.
This is our sophomore take.
This is our sophomore take. So keep that in mind. If you have different opinions about these, or have your own myths and things that you've been like misconceptions you've been debunking in your journey, let us know. And we will see you guys in the next episode.